Alright guys, so after successfully setting up the backend at the front end of this project, so now let's start writing the implementations for creating a user. Since we have already created all the packages that we need, so let's start creating the classes that we need to build this application. So let's start with the model class. Alright, so let's create a user class. So this class will handle user data or user info. So we can just say class user. All right, so after creating the user, so let's add attributes getter and setter. That's for Lombok. So, and let's say attribute all args exception and attribute no args exception. So this has to do with the constructor parameters, right? So then we will specify a attribute entity to say that this is like an entity, then attribute table, so which will be the name of the table that we will specify in the database. So this will be the user table for users, right? So after that we say attribute id, so let's say attribute generation value. So we say strategy equals to generation type dot identity. All right, so the id will be long, private long id. So let's say private string first name, let's say private string last name, so private string username. All right, email, private string email, specify the email, private string phone number, private string profile picture. So we are going to be storing the profile picture as a string. Profile picture, we store it as a string in database. So then we have to specify the password. So user must have password for their accounts for security. It's a private string password. Then so you confirm the password. Then also let's specify role. All right, because we want to give the user maybe like a role. All right, so that to determine what he can actually access in the application and what he cannot access. So let's create it in the enums package. Good. So say user. So now, so we are going to be creating sessions. All right, we'll be creating sessions for each user. So when a user log in, we'll create a session for him. So when he log out, we are going to clear that section. So this is just to track our users activities, to know when they are logged in and when they are not logged in, or when their authentication token is still valid or not. So that's the essence of this section. So we are going to create although this section is going to be like an entity, so we'll now map it, all right, to this user. So active session like this. All right, so let's create a class for active session. Good. So we'll say attribute getter and setter also for Lombok. So attribute all args, attribute no args, attribute entity, then attribute table. So say name, and then we are going to call this active sessions. All right, so that's what we want to call this table in the database. So but before continuing with the session, let's complete the user entity. So we are going to set a token also, you know, when we generate the token for the user. All right, so we are going to also set it to the user table. So when the token is no longer valid, we'll delete the token. All right. So then let's also set a status to track when the user is logged in or not logged in. So we can have something like is logged in. It's logged in. All right. So initially it's going to be false, but once the user log in, it's going to update to true. All right. So I think this is okay for now. Then let's just add a column for our database fields. All right. So the first one, okay, let's add the column. Then let's say the column name will be first underscore name. All right. So we can just duplicate it, because I can just do something like this. All right. I think that's what we need here. So let's create this active section now. So for the active section, we're just going to have the attribute ID. All right, nothing crazy here. So we just generated value. All right, so the strategy will be generated type.identity. So private long ID like this. So then we are going to be saving the token, all right, in the session. So once a new session is created, a new token will be created also, and then we want to associate that token to the session. All right. So if that session is invalidated, we will use the token, all right, to clear the session. So that's the objective here. So let's say private string token. So attribute column. So the name will be token. So after that, so now we want to associate the session to the user. All right. So now I want to establish a relationship between the session and the user, and I'm going to establish a one-to-one relationship. So each user will have one active session. That's how I want to design this application, so that if a user wants to log in, all right, into his account with another device, we have to clear the existing session. If there is any existing session, we have to clear it before we create a new session for the user. So that is why I'm establishing a one-to-one relationship between the session and between the active session and the user. So we are going to say private user say attribute one-to-one. So we'll say attribute join column. I think attribute join column like this. The name, so user ID. So we're also going to add a back reference. So we are going to add this here. So this is used in case of deserialization. Let's now come to this side and also maintain the relationship. So we're going to say attributes one-to-one also. So we are going to be mapping it by the user. Mapped by user. So we're going to map by user. We are going to say cascade type. So cascade type.all, so that if we are to delete the user entity, it also deletes all the sessions associated with it. So we're going to say fetch type lazy. All right. So now we have created the user entity, and we have also created an entity that will hold the session. So also let's specify when the session is created. Private local date time. So created at, so attribute column, name will be created underscore at, like this. All right, so this is what we have now. So the next thing I want us to do is that we need to create a custom user detail as a class. All right. Custom user detail. So this custom user detail now we implement user details. All right, and once it implements user details, all the methods that are in user details, he is going to override all the methods. So let's just override all the methods that we have here. So we are going to inject that user that user we created. All right, so we'll inject it into this place. So all right, let's make it final, and then we'll add it to the constructor. So we have added it into this constructor. So now this is for the role. All right, this is for the role that we specify. So we are just going to say, let's just say collections dot singleton list. So we say new simple granted authority. Then we are going to say no, let's say user dot get we get the role, then dot name. So that's all. So we can say user dot get password, then user dot get username. So if you are using email to sign in, all right, you will say user dot get email, because that is what will be saved as the username. So but since we are using username, it is okay for us to say user dot get username. So after doing that, the next thing is for us to just, okay, let's just say, let's return true here. Let's also return true. Let's return true, and then is enabled. Let's also return true. Although we still need, let's specify this enabled field in our user entity. So let's private boolean. This is a boolean value is enabled. So the next step now is to let's create a repository for the user. So this is going to be an interface. So we'll call it user repository. So it is going to extend JPA repository. All right. So and you are going to pass the user entity here, and the return type of the ID, which is long. So from chat app.model. All right, okay, that's it. So let's also create for the active section, let's call it active session repository. Okay, it's also going to extend JPA repository, and then we specify the entity, which is active session, and the return type of the ID is long. So this is an interface. It's an interface like this. Okay, after creating the repositories, let's create our service classes. So the first one we want to create is let's say user service. So first of all, create a user service interface. Let's create a package here called INPL. So this is where we create the implementations, and this is where we create the service. So let's create the user service implementation now. So it's going to be a class. Let's say user service INPL. Okay, so of course it is going to implement the user service. All right, so now before we proceed, we need to create our user detail service. All right, remember we created our custom user class, so we need to create our user detail class service. So this user detail service is what we'll use to load users, all right, into the security context layer. Sorry. So we can name this user detail service. So let's call user detail service, and it's going to implement the user details. No, it's going to implement the user details service. Good. So it is going to override this method. So now let's make this a component. All right, so we can say attributes component, so it'll be like a Spring component. So now let's inject the user repository into this service. User repository. So user repository, we'll make it final, right? Yeah. So now the next thing we are going to do, let's now say, okay, let's say user repository dot find by username So user repository dot find by username. We don't have this method in our repository class, so let's create it like this. So it's going to be like a method. So create it here. So I want this to return optional. It will return optional user. So is it like this? Optional user. So import this java.utils. So we are going to pass string username. So this username now is coming from the user entity. All right. So we have said, so we'll now say user. Okay, find by username .os. So .os throw new username not found exception. Let's say no user found with the provided username. This username like this. All right. So let's introduce local variable. So this is the user. So you now return. You can return. So that's that. So after creating the user detail service, the next thing for us to do is to create an endpoint that will allow us to register a user. So let's come to this user service, and we are going to say base response register user. All right, and this endpoint is going to take an argument of user registration request. So let me show you what's in this base response. There's nothing much there. It's just a response structure that will return the status code, the description, and the data. All right. So let's say you successfully create a user. We will want to return the status code of 200 successful or 201 created, and then we want to add a description saying user created successfully. And also we might want to add the user data. All right, maybe like as a response, so that you see the full user details. So, and also there is also an error class here that I've created here, and then there is a map that takes a string and an object, which we if you want to add additional data. All right. So, and then we have different constructors. All right, there are the constructors that take just 2 parameters. There's one that take 1. There's one, this is the one that we'll use the most. All right, this particular is the one that I want to use. So that's just what this response class is all about. So now let's create this class. We'll create a DTO. Let's say create class user registration. So let's create a DTO. All right, that has all the user details. So let's just let's come to this model. Let me just copy everything here. So come to this user side, so paste this, then I will just remove this. I will remove the ID. I will just remove all these JPA and Hibernate properties. So just remove it. Remove this. So we are not specifying the role, all right, and we are not specifying the field for creating session. So we are not the one specifying this token. We'll generate it, then we'll set it, and we are not manually specifying this. We are not also specifying this. We'll generate this automatically. So I think that's this is pretty much what we are actually specifying. So now let's add our getter and setter method. Attribute setter and getter, attribute all add, attribute no add. So we have created the DTO that contains user request. All right. So the next thing is for us to override this method in our implementation class. So you just implement it. All right, and the method is here. So this is going to be a service. So the important will specify this stereotype, which is attribute service, so that Spring can actually recognize this as a valid component. Okay, to start with, we need to start adding validation. The first thing we need to do is to be sure that no field is empty in this user request. So the request that the user is actually passing, that every field is actually filled with data and or actually valid field. So let's create a helper method, private, all right, validate user input, or let's say validate user request. So we are going to pass user request here, pass request. So we are going to say if request dot get first name is equals to null. So we want to throw an exception. We can say throw new empty field exception, throw empty field exception. So we can say username, first name is mandatory, first name is required. All right, so we can say http status dot badge request. So it will indicate that this is a badge request if the username is not provided. So first name, and if the first name is not provided, so I say first name is required. So we are going to create, we don't have this exception class, so let's create it in our exception package. So we have an exception package here, so we'll just create it here. So we want it to return we want it to extend runtime exception. So we can say private final http status. So let's add it to this constructor. Let's remove this. So this will be the message that we are actually sending. So say super message. So let's say public http status get status. So we can return the status here. All right, so this is it. So we have created one exception class. Now we are going to have like a global exception handler. All right, so let's create a class for that, call it a global exception handler. Global exception handler. All right, so we created it. So we are going to annotate with it attribute rest advisor. REST controller advice. Good, that's it. Okay, so the next thing, after annotating it, so the next thing we'll say attribute exception handler. So let's specify the exception, which is empty field exception dot class. So let's say public, because this is going to return a problem details. All right, public problem detail handle empty field. This is empty field exception. Empty field exception like this. So we are going to say empty. Let's add empty field exception here. AX. So let's return problem detail dot for status. Then we want to say HTTP status dot bad request. So this is like a bad request. So let's say EX or get message. Good. So this is what we have now. All right. So we can use this exception. We can throw this exception now in our user service. So we are going to say if request or get first name is equals to null. So we'll throw an exception. Then we can say if request dot get last name is equals to null. You can also throw a new empty field exception. Then we can say last name is required. Say HTTP status. This is also bad request. So let me just duplicate it for the rest fields. So these are the basic validations. So let's now say, so validates user requests. So that's it. So we'll just call the method here, so and they will pass in the request. So that's the first thing. So the next thing, we actually want to check in the database to be sure that the user does not already exist, either by the phone number, the username, or the email. All right, so these are the three fields that we want to make sure that are not already in existence in the database for any user. So these fields are going to be unique. So let's say private final user repository. So user repository, let's add it to the constructor. So we are going to say user repository dot find by username. All right, so this is supposed to return an optional, let's see. Good. So exists by username, or let's say existing username. Okay, so we are going to say if existing username dot is present. All right, so we want to throw an error, throw an exception, throw new username already exists. Exception like this. Username, okay, username already exists exception. So let's create this exception. Let's say a user, or let's say username already exists. Let's just make it simple. Username already exists. So this is like a bad request. Say HTTP status bad request. So now let's create this exception class. That's for this. So then what? Let's also check. Let's say user repository dot find by phone number. All right, we want to check if the phone number already exists. Request.get phone number. So we don't have a method for this in the repository, so let's create it. So this is going to be optional. So we want to find the user by the phone number. Good. So we're passing this string phone number. So now we are going to say, okay, existing phone number. Let's just say existing phone number. Existing phone number, like this. So now we are also going to do the same thing here, the same check. So if the phone number is present, we can say phone number already exists. Phone number already exists, exception. Okay, or instead, this is what we should have done. All right, to make this thing more, instead of creating phone number already exists, when we will only be using it once, we can just create just one exception class and call it already exists. So that would have been better. So let's just refactor this, rename this, and let's just call it already exists. Already in existence exception. Already in existence. Already in existence exception. So let's just refactor this like this. This is better. All right, so we can easily reuse this thing for both the phone number and also, let me see, okay, let's make the change here. Already in existence exception. No, this should be in capital letter. Sorry. Refactor rename. Since it's a class, so a class should always start with capital letter, while a method should start with lowercase letter. So handle already in existence exception. So now, so we can easily reuse this now here. All right, so we just change the description. We just say phone number already exists. All right, so this is a bad request, so let's add this here. All right, so now let's also check by the email. We can say user repository dot find by email. Right, want to say request dot get email, find by email, request dot get email. So we just create this method, and I want it to return optional, like the first two I've created. So let it, sorry, optional user find by email. All right, so we are passing string email. So let's cancel this. So introduce local variable. Let's say existing email. All right, so let's do the same thing here. Let's say if existing email dot is present, or so let's say email already exists. Email already exists. So but we can say, we can make it more intuitive by saying user with the provided username, all right, plus request dot get username. All right, user plus provided username already exists. So this is provided user with provided username. Let's say Moses already exists. So let's do the same thing. I think this will be more descriptive, so let's do this. So user will be provided phone number, okay. So request dot get phone number already exists. So let's say user will be provided email address. Let's say request.get email already exists. So this is okay. Let's add this here. So this is it. So now the next validation we want to add is for the phone number. All right, we want to be sure that the phone number is at least 11 digits and also 11 characters, and also that the password is a custom password, all right, that it must contain like a special character, uppercase letter, lowercase letter, and a number. So that's the next thing we want to do. Let's create a utility class. All right, we can call it the password validator. So now let's say private static. We want this to be static so that, because we want to be able to access the values in this class by the class name. All right, final string password pattern. So we want to specify a pattern that the password must match. All right, so if the password does not match that pattern, then that password is not valid. So this is how we do that. We are going to use some regex, so regular expression. So you do something like this. All right guys, we have done specifying or defining the password pattern. All right, so after defining the password pattern, to do, let's compile the password pattern. All right, so let's say private static final pattern. So the pattern will be equals to pattern dot compile. So let's pass this password pattern. So let's have a method, a boolean method, that tells us whether the password is valid or not. So whatever string that will pass to the method, it will evaluate it and tell us whether the password is valid or not, based on what the characters that we have specified here as a pattern. So if the password that is provided does not match any of this pattern, it's going to return false. So let's say it's password valid. All right, so we are going to pass a string password as an argument. So if we want to say if password, which is this string, if it's equals to null first, we want to return false. All right, else we are going to return pattern matcher dot password dot matches. All right, so let's also make this is password valid. Let's even change it to is valid, not is password valid. Let's just simplify it. We have is valid. All right, so let's make this class a static. Let's make it a static method, sorry, so that we are able to access this method via the class name outside of this class. So we'll come to this our service side. So we are going to say if not password validator dot is valid. All right, so we want to say request dot get password. So we can throw an exception, throw new invalid password exception. Password is not valid. dot, this is a bad request. So let's so that's it. So the next thing we want to make sure that the phone number is 11 digits. So we are going to say if not request dot get phone number equals to 11 dot length, sorry, you can say dot, I think dot length and dot length. If not request dot get phone number dot length, if request, wait, let's say if request dot get phone number dot length is not equals to 11, good. So we want to throw a new invalid phone number exception. Phone number must be 11 digits. HTTP status dot bad request. So this is like a bad request. So we need to ensure that the password that you are passing matches the password, the confirmation password. All right. So we are going to say if request dot get password, no, if not request dot get password dot equals request dot get confirm password, right? We want to throw new password mismatch exception. That's to say passwords do not match. HTTP status. Let's also create bad request. So let's also quickly create an exception class for this. All right, so we have created a password mismatch exception class. So after doing this, I think that these are the basic validations we need to do. So the next thing is to actually create the user. So let's have a utility method or an helper method that will help us create a user. Let's say private user is going to return the user for us. Private user creates user. So we're going to pass the user registration request. So we pass in the request here. So we are going to say user equals to new user. So user dot set first name. I'm going to say request dot get first name. So user dot set last name. I'm going to say request dot get last name. So user dot set username. So to say request dot get username. So user dot set phone number. I'm going to say request dot get phone number. So user dot set email. We are going to say request dot get email. So user dot set what else? The role. We are going to say role dot user. So user dot set password. Set password. We are going to say request dot get password. We are going to encode this password, all right, before saving it. Let me just finish setting this. User dot set profile picture. User dot set profile picture. So request dot get profile picture. All right. So then let's say user dot set user.set user.set created at, so I have local date time dot now. All right, so we are going to just return the user here. Now this password, we need to encode it, right? So we are going to use let's say private final password, so password encoder like this. So let's add this to the constructor. So we are going to say password encoder dot command z dot encode. All right, so we are going to encode this password, all right, before saving it to the database. So this is what we have now. So now create user. All right, so pass in the user request. Sorry, we'll pass in the request like this. We'll pass in the request, and so it's going to return user. But now there's something we need to do. All right, this profile picture, there is a way we are going to handle this profile picture from the front end. So when the user will actually select the profile picture, maybe choose it from like a file path that is already existing in my local environment. All right, so let's say the user will select the profile picture from there. So then we will now send the profile picture to the backend. All right, we are going to create a custom link or address for the profile picture. So I don't think it's not nice for us to specify this profile picture in the user request. We are going to be sending it as a multipath file from the front end. All right, and that's how we'll also be handling it right here in the backend. So this endpoint, this functionality, this register user, it is going to take two arguments. Let's say it's going to take a multipath file. Let's call this a profile picture. All right, let's call this profile picture. Let's make the modification here, add it here, profile picture like this. So now we have removed it right here among the requests. So this is what we have. All right, so the next thing we need to do, so we need to create like a file storage service. All right, so in this service, that's where we will be storing our profile picture. Like when we actually fetch them, that's where we will store it. All right, so that's the path. So let's create a new class. We'll call it a file storage config. So but before then, let's come to, so the path that we want to use, let's specify it in our application.properties file. All right, right here in the application.properties, we need to create the file upload path. All right, so I am on Mac and this is the path that I'm going to use. So I'm going to use upload there equals to slash private slash tmp slash uploads. All right, so that's what I'm going to use for my own. So then after specifying the path to this file storage service, all right, so let's make this a service, or we can say a component. All right, let's just make it a component. So after that, so the next thing we have to do, let's specify that path, because we are going to we are going to use the path. So this is what we'll do. We are going to construct a path. All right, so when we construct the path, we are going to append it to the base URL. All right, so that is what will form how we are going to actually retrieve the image when we need it. So let's say private string base URL. So attribute value, Okay, so we are going to specify the path. Let's say private final path. So this will be like the root location. The root location. All right. So let's create a constructor. Let's say public file storage config. Let's say attribute value. So this will be that file path that we specified in our application.properties file. So we are going to have something like this. This is it. So let's see what's the name. That's it. So file.up. Let's just copy this and let's come to this place. Just pass it here like this. Okay, so let's say string upload directory. So the upload directory. So now let's now set this root location. Root location will be equals to paths, not paths. Path dot get the upload directory. So we'll use this one. So we'll specify this upload directory like this. So let's say try files. Let's say files dot create. So we want to create the directories. All right, so we'll pass the root location. So this is going to throw an exception. So after doing this, the next thing is to let's write an endpoint that allows us to actually store the image. Let's say store image. All right, so we are going to pass the multi-path file. Remember I told you that the image is going to be coming as a multi-path file from the front end. So it's going to take multi-path file. Let's say file. All right, so let's wrap this in the try catch. So we want to catch IO exception. We can easily throw it in the method signature, but IO exception yes. Okay, so we want to throw new runtime exception. So fail to store file. All right, so in case if there is an error, so it's going to throw this exception. So now let's proceed. Let's now write the logic for storing the file. So we want to say, so if the file is empty, we are going to say if file dot is empty. First of all, we want to throw new empty field exception. So we want to say failed, or we want to say file cannot be empty. File cannot be empty. Just throw an exception like this. So let's say http status of bad request. All right, so that's if the file is empty. So the next thing we want to do, so we need to get the original name of the file. So we can say file.get original name. So let's extract the original name. All right, original file name. So after extracting the original file name, we want to get the last index. So we are going to do something like this. We are going to say original file name dot substring. All right, so say original file name dot last index of let me explain to you what is going to happen now. So sorry, extension. Okay, so now if you have a file like let's say moses.jpg. All right, so it is going to get that last from where dot starts from. You understand? That is what it's going to get. So that is what we mean by getting the last index. So then we are going to use it now to now create a new file name. So we want to use uid because we want to create a random name. uid dot random uuid dot, so you append, let's append the extension to it. All right, so we append the extension to it. So call it new file name. We append the extension to it like this and call it a new file name. So after that, the next thing we want to do, we want to set the file name, all right, to the root. All right, so this root location that we have specified here. So we are going to say, so let's introduce local variable. So we are going to call it the destination file. All right, so we are setting the new file name. All right, resolving it to this our destination file. So after that, then we now have to copy the files. Let's say files dot copy. Let's say file dot get input stream, and then let's pass the destination. So we have copied it to the final destination. So after that, we are going to return the base URL plus this new file name. All right, that is we are going to append the base URL plus the upload to the directory specified for the upload. We are going to say something like, let's say base URL like this. Say base URL plus slash upload slash, all right, plus new file name. So this is what we are going to have. If we have something like localhost 3030 as my base URL, so for we are going to access this image on slash upload slash, and then the name of the image, maybe like image dot jpeg. So that's how we are going to access it. So the base URL is this, then this is the slash upload, then this is the file name. So that's what we are returning. All right, so now let's set the profile picture to the user now. So we are going to say if profile picture is not equals to null, or not profile picture dot is empty. All right, so we are going to say file storage config dot store image. We'll pass in the profile picture. So remember, I've already injected this dependency here. So we pass the profile picture like this. So we introduce a local variable. So we are going to call it profile picture path. All right, so we want to say user the set profile picture, passing the profile picture path like this. So after passing it, so the next thing we want to do, we want to say return, we want to now save the user to the repository. So we want to say user repository dot save, then we can pass in this user like this. So after saving the user, we can now return a base response. Return new base response. So let's say http servlet response.sc created, and then let's say let's add a description. Let's say user created successfully. So we can choose to add the user entity here. All right, can add the user data like this. Okay, but I think what we have to do is that we will have to like we will have to map this user data, all right, into a response, then return the response. It will be better that way. So let's add a utility method here, a utility class, sorry, we can call it DTO mapper. All right, we can say public is going to return we can call it a user response. It's going to return user response, build user response. All right, it's going to take the user, it's going to accept the user entity as an argument. Import model. All right, so I already have a class for the user response. So what we need is just the ID, all right, the user ID, the first name, the last name, the username, email, phone number, and profile picture. All right, so that's what we are returning as a user response. So we are going to say we are going to create an object of this user response. Response will be equals to new user response. So let's say response dot set first name. So we can say user dot get first name, response dot set last name. We can say user dot get last name, response dot set username, user dot get username. So response dot set email, user dot get email, response dot set phone number. Let's see, user dot get phone number. Also, we also want to return the user ID. Response dot set set ID. So let's say user dot get ID. So which other field? Let's say response dot set I think profile picture. So we can say user dot get profile picture. I'm not sure there's any other field. Response dot set we have already set all the fields. All right, so we'll just return response. Just return response. Yeah, so we'll just return the response like this. All right, so let's come to this place. We can just say private final DTO mapper. All right, so we just add this to the constructor, and then so after saving the user, we can use the saved, let's say saved user. All right, so we can now say mapper dot build user response. We can pass this in. All right, so this is going to return a response. Let's say user response, user response. All right, so that response, now we can now pass that response here. All right, that's what we'll return here. So this is better. All right guys, please let's make a quick correction. This file storage config, let's move the implementations here. Let's create a service, then we are going to call this file storage as service. All right, so we are going to move, let's call it this will be a component. Let's say attribute component. So let's move our implementations here to the file storage service, and then we are going to have a config here. All right, so let's change this to file storage service. Yeah, file storage service. So let's come to this place where we used it and also make the correction. All right, so let's say file storage service, like this. So let's remove this. Let's add all the constructors again, and then let's auto-wire all the dependencies. So we are going to have file storage service here like this. All right, so now in our file storage config, let's have some implementations to cover the configuration. So the first thing we want to do, this needs to implement web MVC configurer. Like this will implement this. So let's import this. All right, that's the first. So now let's specify the upload directory here, the one coming from our application.properties file. So we're going to say attribute value. So let's copy it from our application.properties file. So this is I'm going to say this is the file.upload directory. So we'll come to this place and then we'll paste it here like this. So let's say private string upload directory like this. So we are going to override a method, attribute override. We are going to say public void add resource handler, resource handlers. All right, so it's going to take an argument of resource handler registry. So passing the registry like this. So let's specify the OS specific directory. We are going to say string OS specific directory. Directory will be equals to, so we are going to say if the upload directory, if it starts with /tmp, just like we have. All right, so we are going to say a file. All right, file/private plus the upload directory. So else we are just going to say file plus the upload directory. So this will be our OS specific path. So we are going to say registry.add resource handler. All right, so we are going to say /upload /all. All right, here upload /all. Now the resource location, let's say add resource location. The resource location is going to be the OS specific directory, and then let's cache the period for efficiency. Let's say set cache period. So we are going to set it to, so we are setting the cache period to 1 hour. Then we'll say resource chain, we'll set it to true. Then we're going to say add resolver. So we're going to say new path resolver. All right, that's all for the configuration. The next thing that we have to do is to create our user controller class. All right, so when we create our user controller class, so that is where we are going to implement the endpoint for actually registering a user. So let's proceed. we're going to say user controller. Like this. So let's continue. We're going to say attribute REST controller. Then we'll say attribute request mapping. All right, so we're going to, let's add this $sign. We're going to say app.title. Then we are going to say attribute cross origin. So this will allow a different origin, like if the backend is running on port 3030 and the front end is running on port 2020, it is actually going to allow it. All right, but we're not going to specify the front end specific path. All right, so what we're going to specify this star here, so which means that it should accept any origin. All right, so now let's continue. All right, so if you come to the application of properties, so we already specified the version here. So what we're going to do, we are going to say app dot title will be equals to API slash, oh, pass this $sign, then we copy this. All right, and specify it here like this. So this is what we are going to have. All right, so it means that we are going to be able to access the app if, like, the backend is running on, let's say, localhost 3030. So we are going to now have API slash v1 slash create user. So this is what we are expecting. So now since this is done now, so let's now come to this controller. So let's create the endpoints for a registering user. So first of all, let's inject the user service into this place. So we are going to say private final user service. So let's add this to a constructor. So right, so let's have the first endpoint for registering a user. Let's create the API for it. So we are going to say this is a post request, attribute post mapping. All right, then we want to specify the path. So the path will be slash create user slash create user. All right, so it's going to, this endpoint is also going to consume media type, because you know we are sending the image is going to be like a multi-type file, which is like a picture. So we are saying media type dot multi-part form data value, because we are going to be sending form data from the front end. So for the value such as the first name and everything is going to be coming in form of a form, all right, from the front end. So let's say public, I want to use a response entity here so that we can return a white card. All right, so let's say register user. So we're going to say attribute requests paths. Attribute request path. So we're going to say first name, first underscore name, string first name, so let's just duplicate these. All right, so we have first name, so we have last name also, last name. So next thing, we are going to have the username, username, we are going to have email, let's just remove this underscore. So we are going to have phone number, phone underscore number. So we have phone number here. All right, so the next thing we're going to have password. We're going to have password, then we'll have confirm password, confirm underscore password. Confirm password. Then lastly, we are going to have the profile picture. All right, so this is what we have now. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to try to, because this endpoint for creating a user, if you come to the user service, is going to accept user requests, all right, and a multi-part file, which is the profile picture. So we are going to look for a way to map this request, map it to the user request, so that we can pass it to that endpoint. So now let's create a mapper class here. So we'll call this public user request. Let's say build user request. All right, so this is going to take string first name, first name, string last name, string username, to take string email, and it will take string phone number, is going to take string password, string confirm password. So this might not be the most efficient way to do this, but this is just for the sake of this tutorial. All right, so we are going to create an object of user request, user registration request. Let's say request will be equals to new user registration request. So we can easily pass the first name, last name, username, email, password, and confirm password. First name, last name, username, email, password, confirm password. Okay, there's phone number, all right, so we can just return this. Let's just return this. All right, so we can just return this like this. So right here we can ingest a private final detail bto mapper. So let's add this to the constructor. So we want to say mapper dot build user request. So we are going to pass the first name, the last name, the username, the email, the phone number, the password, and the confirm password. Alright, so that's what we're going to pass. So this is going to return the request for us. So we can now say user service dot register user. So we can pass the request, and we can also pass the profile picture. Alright, so what's this? Okay, required type multipart. Okay, we are supposed to, this should be a multipart file, yeah, because that is exactly what we are sending from the front end. We're sending the profile picture as a multipart file. So let's introduce the local variable. I think this is returning a base response. Okay, yeah, base response. So we are going to return response entity dot okay. So passing the base response. All right, so this is the API for registering a user.